Our intelligence officials were warning of coronavirus threat in January. Just based on public information that I had, I warned the threat was getting worse way back on January the 27th and urged the need to put science first, draw on emergency funds to get response started, think about invoking disaster powers to respond. Many of us talked about the need to get the U.S. scientists on the ground to see firsthand what was happening in China, rather than relying on what came from China. My point is not simply that the president was wrong. My point is that the mindset that was slow to recognize the problem in the first place, to treat it with the seriousness it deserved, is still too much a part of how the president is addressing the problem. South Korea detected their first case of coronavirus on the same day we did. But they had tests and sophisticated tracing programs to stop the spread of the virus, so they didn't have to put the entire country on lockdown. We had none of that. So we're left with the only extreme social distancing measures currently in place. That's a failure of planning and preparation by the White House. Today, months later, Americans who need to be tested or still have no access to tests in many parts of the country. And in many places, our healthcare system teeters on the brink of collapse. Hospital beds are filling. Doctors and nurses are already running out of critical equipment. The federal government needs to coordinate getting medical supplies out to every corner of the country so we don't have governors competing against one another. As of late yesterday, we're told that the president still has not activated the authority under the Defense Production Act, which I and others call for him to invoke immediately and act on, to direct American manufacturers to make essential supplies. Trump keeps saying that he's a wartime president. Well, start to act like one. To paraphrase a frustrated President Lincoln, writing to an inactive General McClellan during the Civil War, quote, "If you don't want to use the Army, may I borrow it," end of quote. You know, we need to get in motion today, what we should have set in motion weeks ago. Any public health expert will tell you that in a crisis like this, you can't move too fast. You can only move too slowly. Let me be clear. Donald Trump is not to blame for the coronavirus, but he does bear responsibility for our response. And I, along with every American, hope he steps up and starts to get this right. No, this isn't about politics. This is simply too much at stake, too many lives, too many livelihoods, too many homes and families and businesses and communities at risk. I've laid out a very detailed, in-depth plan for what I think we should be doing. You can read it on joebiden.com. We need immediate action on testing, on research for treatments and vaccines, on leading a global response to beat the virus everywhere. But today, I want to focus on just 4 key points of action. First, the president must take immediate steps to increase our capacity, the capacity of our healthcare system, to treat the sickest coronavirus patients safely. I'm glad the president has finally activated the National Guard. Now we need the armed forces and the National Guard to help with hospital capacity, supplies, and logistics. We need to activate the Reserve Corps of doctors and nurses and beef up the number of responders dealing with these crush of cases. And in addition to that, we have to make sure that we are in a position that we are. Well, let me go to the second thing. I've spoken enough of that. The president must use the Defense Production Act to radically increase the supply of critical goods needed to treat patients and protect our healthcare workers and first responders, including the protective gear like face masks and critical equipment like ventilators so desperately needed in our hospitals. It means working with all our allies and partners to get supplies from overseas when available, dispatching U.S. military assets to retrieve them quickly if they are available. It means federal coordination of the supply chains to accelerate deliveries and get them to the right places at the right time, and much more. And we need to build an arsenal of democracy, and as we did in 1940, we can make a personal productive equipment. Look, here's the deal. We have to do what we did in the 40s and the 20s, the 2020s. And we can do that. We need to build a medical arsenal here. Third, the president needs to end the infighting and bickering with his own administration listen to the scientists, and provide clear guidance. The American people are not getting clear leadership, clear action, and clear accountability. Management matters in a crisis. I've been there in the situation room. There are thousands of steps that need to be taken all at once. You need to be planning, not just for today, but for tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. Is the White House actively planning for what it will take for the American people